Hi, my name is Nur Alisa binti Azian and my matrix ID is 2020857878.
My name is Nurain Amilia Shamira binti Mohamad Amir. My matrix ID is 2020472868.
My name is Puteri Nur Aliya Zulaika binti Roslan. Matrix ID 2020892548.
My name is Ayuni Mazni binti Salamat Abadi. Matrix ID 2020-81-23-22.
My name is Nur Humaira binti Ahmad Sohimi. My matrix ID is 2020868164.
First and foremost, I will talk about geographical of Malaysia. Malaysia has been categorized as equatorial since this country is located near the equator line. Equatorial is also known as a country that is not too humid throughout the year. Malaysia is a tropical weather year-round due to the climate is often quite humid and the weather is not too hot and not so cool since the range temperature in Malaysia from 20 Celsius to 30 Celsius throughout the year. Every year, Malaysia experiences the monsoon phenomena, however this varies depending on the destination. From the usually, monsoon phenomena will be attacked southwest starting from May to September, and while in the northeast, monsoon will attack from November to March. As an alternative to increasing the economy's growth in Malaysia, the government has set the best time for the tourists from another country and also tourists from other states to visit and holiday in Malaysia. The best time is in January and February on the west coast, while April in Sabah and June-July on the east coast and Sarawak. Kuala Lumpur, as the capital of Malaysia, also experienced rainfall starting from March to April and September to November. Outside of the monsoon season or phenomenon, Malaysia is very pleasant and the weather is also categorized as warm sunny days and slightly cooler nights, making Malaysia is a pleasant and valuable place to visit almost every year. Since 2019, everything changed when the COVID-19 has spread worldwide until Malaysia government need to close the reception of foreign tourists to prevent the COVID-19 virus from spreading more severely. Because of this virus, the economic growth in Malaysia is decreasing day by day. Malaysia is the 66th largest country in the world with a total land area of 329,613 km square. Malaysia have two major parts of the country such as Peninsula Malaysia, which is Semenanjung Malaysia, and also being called West, located between Thailand in the north and Singapore in the south, and East Malaysia, Malaysia Timur, which is Sabah and Sarawak, located on Borneo. The capital of Malaysia is Kuala Lumpur, located in the western part of Peninsula, about 25 miles or 40 km from the coast, which is the administrative centre. Putrajaya is located about 60 miles or 25 km south of the capital. According to the International Monetary Fund 2020, Malaysia is one of the countries that have the strongest economy in Southeast Asia. Why Malaysia is known as the strongest economy? This is because Malaysia have good economic growth and stability financial. Other than that, Malaysia also the 36th largest strong economy in the world that we should be proud of as a Malaysian. Malaysia is one of the most open economies that reach a real gross domestic GDP with an average ratio of over 130% since 2010. And this shows that Malaysia economy's health is strong. So now I will explain more about factors that affect economic growth in Malaysia, which is geographical Malaysia, Malaysia administration, and also many economic sectors which were conducted in Malaysia. Malaysia administration. Malaysia administration additionally plays a giant role in maintaining and growing the economic growth in Malaysia. Malaysia is one in every of the countries that practice a system being known as democracy, support a federation system. The pinnacle of Malaysia's state is named Rule di Pertuan Agong or King of Malaysia. Rule di Pertuan Agong was elected by doing a range pilihan raya for a 5-year term among 9 hereditary sultan of the Malay states. That is, all the states is found at solid ground Malaysia. The parliament consists of Dewan Rakyat, House of Representatives, and therefore the Dewan Negara, Senate. Parliament assembles in Malaysian homes of parliaments situated within the urban centre town of Malaysian capital. However, administration of Malaysia had an effect on the economy in Malaysia. Malaysia's economy is currently various and therefore the country could be an outstanding provider of electrical appliances, electronics elements, and elements, palm oil and gas. The government's pragmatic business policies have created a business setting with opportunity for growth and profit. Creating Malaysia a fascinating destination, Malaysia's system was influenced by English common law. In Malaysia, we are able to a type of sole proprietary or partnership. Additionally, as an infinite liability company, a corporation restricted by shares, a corporation restricted by guarantee, or a liability partnership. The four most frequent reasonably corporation among foreign investment firm could be a corporation restricted by shares. As an alternative, a far-off entity might register as a far-off entity. Malaysia additionally has an alternate by offer a spread of tax blessing to encourage foreigner direct investment. Pioneer standing and therefore the investment tax allowance unit the two primary tax edges. This very shows a bonus to our economy's growth. Malaysian monetary and political stability, physical security and well-developed infrastructure still create it a fascinating marketplace for international investment. Malaysia's selection is also one in every of its greatest strengths, and with a multi-ethnic and polyglot population, is well positioned to prosper in an progressively interconnected world economy. Last but not least, I will talk about economic sector in Malaysia. The economic sector in Malaysia is a major thing that is very important for every single day for economic growth. The economic sector in Malaysia is playing a big role because Malaysia needs to manage and keep the country's finances stable every single day and also to avoid losses and setbacks of the country. In 1957, after independence, Malaysia's economy has been recognized as one of the best in Asia. Economic Malaysia is divided into three major parts, which is a primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector, when all of these parts has their specialty toward our economic growth. Okay, first, primary sector. A primary sector is the main economic sector in Malaysia because this sector making direct use of natural resources. Example of activities that can be used from natural resources in agriculture, forestry, fishing and extraction of oil and gas. This is because Malaysia was blessed with a variety of natural resources and also pleasant with good weather, since the weather in Malaysia is not too cool and not too hot humid, since Malaysia is located near with equator line. Example of the primary sector is rubber, tin, oil, palm, timber, cocoa and pepper. Okay, next is the secondary sector. The secondary sector is of economics in Malaysia is a sector that producing manufacture and others possesses good from raw material and easily known as manufacturing in 1950 before independence. This sector is not the main sector because Malaysia not too focused on this sector until 1957. Which is after independence, manufacturing finally played a significant role and played as import substitute. Import substitute is the process of importing goods that produced domestically, for example, food, beverage, tobacco, and plastic. After 1970, Malaysia changed into the exports orientation, which is selling our goods to other countries. These methods increased our economic sector at that time. Tertiary sector. Last but not least, the economic sector that we use in this country is tertiary sector, which can be concluded as services sector and intangible goods. This service or intangible goods cannot be touched. An example of the tertiary sector is government services, utilities, information and communication technology, construction, Islamic financial services, education, management service, tourism, logistics, and also oil and gas service. To sum up that geographical of Malaysia administration and economic sector in Malaysia is giving a big impact on our economic growth and maintaining our position as the one of the strongest economic growth in worldwide. Sadly, when the coronavirus spread into our country and is very worse until now, it makes our economic decreasing day by day.
So there are two impacts of falling Malaysian ringgit. First, impact on consumer, and second, impact on economy. So, for impact on consumer, the decrease of ringgit value will affect us a consumer from the increase of price and good. Usually, it will worsen our buying mood. So, we as consumers just need to prepare by the time they increase cost of import goods, as it will connect on price tag. Next, impact of Malaysian ringgit also cause an inflation. Inflation can cause two effects, which is positive and negative. Usually, negative effect may cause due to decrease of the real value money. For positive effect, usually it will be increased consumer spending. This happens because usually consumers tend to wait as goods become cheaper, hoping that they will get the best deal. Lastly, it also gives impact toward job market. A weak domestic will affect economic growth by boosting the export business and making import goods more expensive. This is mostly because they want to force consumers to buy domestic goods. While a strong domestic will have the opposite effect, as it will slow down economic growth. Next, impact on economy. Firstly, impact of exchange rate on international trade is an important issue in international economy. This is because to reduce the uncertainty toward Malaysian international transaction. It also affects on Malaysian export growth, as weak ringgit value also can act as a stimulus toward Malaysian business, as it become more affordable for them, foreign market, to purchase Malaysian goods. Usually, foreign market enjoy weak ringgit business because they can get higher sales volume. Second, it also helps to boost tourism industry, as foreign tourists get the benefit from weak ringgit, so they get to enjoy higher purchasing. It also seems that positive relationship exists between tourism and economic growth, but the direction of causality different from region to region. Besides, the effect from falling Malaysian ringgit also can make investment in Malaysia more welcoming and attract foreign investors, as for them, it made Malaysia more attractive country for investment. It helps to encourage foreign investors to invest, as it is cheaper to operate and buy stock. But there are some foreign investors uneasy about this because somehow it reflects negatively toward them. The removal of Malaysian stock from the Morgan Stanley Capital International (MSCI) Index and the International Finance Corporation Index, as well as the downgrading of Malaysian sovereign rating, helped to boost international investor confidence and recognition of Malaysia as a good place to invest.
How big was the drop and when did it start? The ringgit started falling in late 2014. On 1 December 2014, the ringgit had its largest two-day depreciation since the 1997 until 1998 Asian financial crisis. On 12 June 2015, it was reported that the ringgit had dropped for 4 consecutive weeks in the year's longest losing stretch so far. The ringgit has become Asia's worst performing currency. What caused the drop in the ringgit's value? The first point is the lower value of oil. As oil is one of Malaysia's main exports, the declining price of Brent crude oil of 38% from its June 2014 high is affecting the currency, as questions over Malaysia's 1MDB debts have gained global attention. This has also affected confidence in the ringgit. The falling value of the ringgit in June 2015 has been attributed to the prospect of the US increasing its interest rate. On 11 August 2015, China devalued its currency, which caused other Asian currencies to suffer and push the ringgit down further, as the devaluation of the yuan strengthened the dollar. The second point is commodity shock 1985 until 1986. The economic crisis was triggered by the high interest rates in the US, which is better known as the Volcker shock. Malaysia, being an exporter nation, suffered as primary commodity price fell and demand for manufactured goods declined. Malaysia's overall export price index fell 30% as tin and palm oil's price plunged. The major issues during the 1980s was the heavy industry program that the nation had embarked on. Heavy Industry Corporation of Malaysian Berhad was a public sector entity that was established to carry out heavy industry projects. The programs then involved massive government expenditure, which was partly paid with petroleum revenue, but it was insufficient, and the government began borrowing against future oil revenues. Unfortunately, commodity price along with crude oil price crashed from 1985 to 1986. The government had to embark on an austerity drive as a result of the ballooning debt from the heavy industry program. Malaysia fell into a recession in 1985, which is gross domestic product (GDP), contracting 1% that year. The government then embarked on a contractionary fiscal policy and devalued the local currency. There was also an emphasis on promoting foreign direct investment in the economy. For the financial sector, new prudential regulations were introduced in 1989. The last point is Asian financial crisis 1997 until 1998. The Asian financial crisis is deemed as one of the worst economic crises Malaysia has ever faced until now. Its main cause, according to academics, was the wholesale adoption of financial deregulation in both capital accounts and the banking sector. When the Thai baht came under speculative attack in mid-May 1997, the ringgit saw heavy selling pressure too, causing it to plunge to a low 4.9 against the US dollar in 1997 from 2.4 previously. The ringgit fell to its lowest of 4.9 against the greenback in January 1998. The measures that the country undertook then were deemed unorthodox. Among them was a ban on the offshore market trading of the local currency in September 1998 to curb speculation of the ringgit. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad fixed the ringgit exchange rate at 3.8 to the US dollar. Malaysia also embarked on selective capital controls to discourage speculative short-term portfolios.
Policy. Policy is the term that applies to government, public sector organization, and also teams. The policy is quite different from the rules and law. The law will require behavior, but policy simply guides action toward the people who are most likely to attain the desired outcome. Policies could be a deliberate system of principle to guide selections and win rational outcomes. A policy could be a statement of intent and is enforced as a procedure or protocol. Policies are typically adopted by a governance body among a company. Policy also will assist in each subjective and also objective decision. Policy may apply in subjective decision, typically to assist senior management with selection that must be supported the relative deserve of many factors. Malaysia government needs to develop some of policies to help the economic growth and also to increase the value of the currency. They can use two types of policy. One is demand-side policy, which include fiscal policy and also monetary policy. The second one is supply-side policy, which include free market supply-side policy and even interventionist supply-side policy. Malaysian government can use fiscal policy and also monetary policy to increase the Malaysian ringgit value and can prevent it from falling, since both of the policy have so many examples. Monetary policy is the demand side of the economic policy. It is referring to the action undertaken by the country's central bank to control the money supply and also to achieve the macroeconomic goals that promote sustainable economic growth. Malaysia's government managed the country's monetary policy through altering the interest rate and changing the amount of the money. Monetary policy also will impact the country's aggregate demand. The Malaysia government must implement an expansionary monetary policy by increasing the money supply and decreasing the interest rate. Bank Negara Malaysia, which is Malaysia's central bank, can use the monetary policy to increase or decrease the money supply as well as the interest rates. The Bank Negara Malaysia established the monetary policy based on the different economic conditions such as inflation or recession. It can be raising or lowering the interest rate to accomplish macroeconomic goals. This will result to monetary policy impact the country aggregate demand in three components such as consumption, investment and also net export. In the year 1998, Malaysia have faced financial crisis, which is credit flow in Malaysia was sluggish. At the time, Bank Negara Malaysia take an action to improve the liquidity in the banking system before expanding the credit. As a result, the government reduced the statutory reserve requirement from 13.5% to 10% in February and 8% in July and 4% in October. If the real GDP exceeds the potential GDP, it will come to inflation. At this point, Bank Negara Malaysia will employ a counter-stationary monetary policy to prevent aggregate demand from rising so fast. Bank Negara Malaysia enforced a measure to decrease the inflation rate and restore price stability. The Bank Negara Malaysia will raise the target OPR, which is overnight policy rate, by sell securities and lower the supply of reserve in the banking system. The short-term interest rate rise and will reducing the quantity of money demand. Then the bank will reduce the supply of loan, the supply of loanable money falls, and then the supply curve will shift to the left. The decreasing in investment will result in a decreasing in total projected expenditure. The aggregate demand will diminish and will causing the real GDP to fall to the potential GDP. As the price level decrease, then the inflationary gap will close and also eliminate. So, when the Bank Negara Malaysia do this, potential to our country to face the inflationary is really small. Next is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is government spending and tax policy to affect the economic circumstance, particularly macroeconomic factors such as aggregate demand for goods and services, employment, inflation, and also economic growth. The fiscal policy influences the economy through the taxation, transfer payment, and the purchase of goods and services. The two primary fiscal policy instruments are government taxes revenue collection and expenditure. Next is three discretionary fiscal policy stances. The first one is neutral, the second one is expansionary, the third one is contractionary. In 1997 and 1998, Malaysian economy experienced a worldwide recession. As a result, the government implemented an expansionary fiscal policy in 1998 to overcome the recession. This fiscal initiative to include a selected increase in infrastructure, inspection, and the implementation of tax incentives to promote the private and domestic sector. The government also increased the development spending by 7 billion into agriculture, education and housing development, and as well as 5 billion in infrastructure project. Other than that, the government also pursue a tax decrease strategy. The tax will be cut in service tax, sales tax, excise tax, export tax, import duties, income tax, or a rise in transfer payment, such as unemployment benefit or welfare payment, will boost disposable income and, as a result, household buying power. Reducing a company tax will increase the investment capacity. This will be a rise in the aggregate demand. This also will closing the recessionary gap and boosting the economic growth and lowering the employment will be happen. The expansionary fiscal policy can help to lower the budget deficit. For example, in 2012, Malaysian government implemented a cautious fiscal strategy in order to decrease the budget deficit, which was 4.7% of GDP. This aimed to encourage domestic economic activity while also supporting the economic reform strategy. To accomplish the goals, full employment and sustainable economic development, the government placed a solid focus in 2012 budget to increase the private sector investment and also consumption. Hence, this will raise the aggregate demand and increasing the government spending on product and service such as surveillance, satellites, schools and roadway. Devaluation cost and inflation. Devaluation is official reduction in the value of country's currency under a fixed exchange rate system. And inflation is a market-determined fall in the value of the currency in terms of goods and service. The devaluation will occur when the value of the currency falls, making exports and more competitive and imports more costly. Devaluation is anticipated to contribute to the inflationary pressure. And the devaluation could cause inflation for three reasons. The first one is cost push inflation, the second one is demand pull inflation, and the last one is fewer incentive in long term to cut the cost. The cost push inflation is when imported items be more expensive if the currency is devalued. The next one is demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is the price increase that occur as a result of a supply shortfall. The devaluation will make export become more competitive, become cheaper to overseas customers. The devaluation also will affect the exportation become more cheaper. In a conclusion, the devaluation definitely affect and cause of the inflation. It is because, as we know, inflation is a market-determined fall in the value of the currency. So when devaluation happens, it will cause to inflation.
Malaysia's inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index (CPI), rose 4.7% year-on-year in April 2021, the highest since 2018. Compared to 2020, inflation rate for Malaysia was negative 1.1%. Housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels rose 3.1% compared to the previous year due to the termination of the electricity discount given to the domestic consumer of Tenaga Nasional Berhad under the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package Prihatin, which began in April 2020 and has ended in December 2020. Furthermore, the index of food and non-alcoholic beverages increased 1.9% from a year ago due to a shortage in the supply, higher demand, and uncertainty in weather. Even though the overall index increased, that the core index, which includes most volatile items of fresh food as well as administered prices of goods and services, increased 0.7% in April 2020. The CPI without fuel increased 1.7% in April 2021 to 113.8 as compared to 111.9 in the same month of the preceding year. CPI without fuel covers all goods and services except unleaded petrol RON 95, unleaded petrol RON 97 and diesel. Meanwhile, on a monthly basis, CPI increased by 0.2% as compared to March 2021. Out of 552 items covered in the CPI, 366 items showed an increase in April 2021. On the contrary, 116 items declined while 70 items were unchanged, based on the performance of 552 items by category of goods and services. 296 item non-durable goods are a category that experienced the most price increase, with 230 items, 49 item decrease, and 7 items were unchanged as compared to services, semi-durable goods, and durable goods. The average price of unleaded petrol RON 95 in April 2021 increased 61.4% to RM2.05 per litre as compared to RM1.27. Unleaded petrol RON 97 increased 62.4% to RM2.55 per litre as compared to RM1.75, and diesel increased 44% to RM2.50 per litre from RM1.49 due to a faster rise in fuel prices. 7 states, namely Terengganu is 6.3%, Kelantan is 5.7%, Pahang is 5.6%, Kedah and Perlis are 5.1%, Negeri Sembilan is 5%, and Johor is 4.9%, surpass the national CPI rate of 4.7% in April 2021 compared to April 2020. All states registered an increase in the index of food and non-alcoholic beverages. The highest increase was recorded by Pahang at 2.2%, followed by Terengganu is 2.8%, Selangor and Putrajaya are 2.6%, Kelantan is 2.6%, and Johor is 2.1%. Malaysia's unemployment rate. The unemployment rate in Malaysia rises from 3.9% March 2020 to 4.7% in the same month preceding year. In the middle of the severe impact caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the amount of unemployed increased 23.4% from preceding year to 753,200, while unemployment nearly increased by 0.6% to 15.33 million, while the labour force rose 1.5% to 16.8 million. In the February 2021, the unemployment rate was 4.8%. In Malaysia, the percentage measure the quality of individual activity, searching for job as a percentage of the labour force. Despite the fact that the Movement Control Order MCO has been extended until 18 February 2021 in all states except Sarawak, 3 other companies such as night market, hair salon and car wash were allowed to open under strict standard operating procedure SOP. To ensure economic survival, particularly in small enterprises, the remaining retail sector, which include shoes stores, clothing, fashion and accessories, and photography equipment and services, were allowed to continue operates on February 10, 2021. Following that, most sport and fitness activities such as motorsport, golf, badminton, tennis, and gym activities were permitted. Furthermore, the first phase of the vaccination campaign, which began on February 24th, 2021, provided access to business and the general public. The Chinese New Year was likewise celebrated quietly in February 2021. According to SOP, with just 15 close relatives residing in the same areas allowed together for the usual region bucket. In February 2021, the labour force situation improved marginally over the previous month, with the number of employed people continuing to rise and the number of unemployment people decreasing following 4 months of increases since October 2020. Health, human and social work, as well as wholesale and retail trade activities accounted for the majority of increase in employed people over the time. When comparing year on year, the growth of labour force was ascribed to an increase in the number of unemployed people, while the number of employed people continued to decline.
The moral and economic tragedy of youth unemployment and its impact on households and communities beyond the affected individual confront philanthropic funders who are focusing on youth development, inclusive economies and employment. Attempts to create employment opportunities or remove the barriers that keep disadvantaged young people out of the workforce necessarily intersect with private sector activity and often with government policies and plans. As such, the chance to officially partner with actors from both sides enable philanthropic funders to play a catalytic rather than duplicate role in tackling youth unemployment. By working together, the scale of intervention is frequently bigger and the impact more sustainable. By having solutions to prevent this unemployment, it have helped a lot of young generation and the middle age to find a job. We can also conclude that by having job, it will help to decrease the criminal activities in the country so that the government do not need to worry about the condition of the country. Unemployment is not only can affect one person, but it can affect a lot in the economic system in the country because when there is higher unemployment, the country will not having a income or money changes from other country. In conclusion, every country need to avoid or prevent this unemployment so that the economic system of the country will not be affected.